If you're planning your next adventure in the beautiful French Alps, we've got some amazing insights for you. Meet Paul and Helen Webster, expert hikers and authors of the incredible book, The Wild Guide to the French Alps. They're here to let you in on some hidden gems and share their top tips to help you truly enjoy the good life in the iconic mountains of France. So, get ready to discover the hidden treasures of the French Alps as Paul and Helen take you on a thrilling journey through their extensive knowledge and experience.
Welcome to France Today Live. I am Sylvia Davis, culture editor for France Media and your host today. It is your participation that make these live events so special. So I wanted to thank you for your participation and for your lovely comments on our past events. Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to welcome Helen and Paul Webster on their secret and not so secret spots to go wild in the French Alps. And with that, I'd like to invite Paul and Helen to start their video.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, Helen. Hello, Paul. How are you? Very well, thank you. So you're coming to us from the beautiful Highlands.
Yes,
That's
which
right.
is uncharacteristically hot and sunny.
Oh, excellent. Same in France, same in France. It's such a treat to have you, especially as it's hard to catch you, as most of the time you're out on an adventure. We're very lucky to have you today. And let me introduce you. Paul and Helen Webster are the authors of The Wild Guide to the French Alps and co-founders of hiking and walking hub Walk Highlands. They are passionate about the outdoors and spend most of their time writing online guides and books to help others get the most out of their ventures into nature. Thanks again, Paul and Helen. And we often think of the French Alps as a winter destination, but I feel like we're about to discover with you that this is really for any time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's two seasons really. I think it's almost a completely different place in the summer. There's kind of shoulder in between, but we know it as a summer place, to be honest. We're not skiers,
So yeah, definitely the no snow season. Before we get into the French Alps themselves, I believe you're going to share with us a little bit of how you got into, because it sounds to me like you have the best job in the world. Can you tell us how you got into this type of work? I'll leave it over to you.
Yeah, this photo is 20 years ago, back in 2003, when we had normal, real jobs.
And Paul had hair.
And I still had hair, more importantly. And then we'd been wanting to do it for years, which was take a career break. We went and did a walk that was a whole year long. This is us setting off at the start. It's the westernmost point of mainland Europe, which is Cape Finisterre in Spain. This was our route. We went through Spain, up into France, down through Italy, and then we got a ferry off to Greece and carried on walking. In a year, we arrived here, which is Katos on the east coast of Crete. After that, we went back to the jobs, which we'd spent ages negotiating that we'd be able to return to. But of course, we didn't want to do it. We'd got new ideas that we wanted to spend our lives really evangelizing about the things that we love, which are getting out in nature and hiking. So we started a website called Walk Highlands, which is all about walking in Scotland with thousands of routes and things. And that's grown hugely over the last 15, 16 years. Yeah. And alongside that, we've written lots of books. So these are some of our guidebooks to Scotland. So we've written 20 odd guidebooks to Scotland. But why France?
I think at the same time as we were developing our love of Scotland, we also fell in love with the French Alps, which we'd visited the foothills of during our long walk across Europe. The first trip we did was to the Vanoise National Park, which you'll see highlighted on the map. Right at the top of the map is Geneva. And then right down on the bottom at the Med, you've got Nice. So the French Alps pretty much snaking all the way up between that. The Vanoise National Park, this is a little flavor of what it looks like, a very mountainous area, lots of glaciers, and This is an old trade route, this path, where people used to carry salt between the mountains. It's an area that's really rich in wildlife. This is an ibex, which I think in French you might know it as a bouquetin, and that was been reintroduced to the national park and is thriving. But the one that we really love is the cute marmot. You can't go to the Alps without falling in love with marmots. You'll hear their shriek whistle and you'll see them pretty much all over the place. We also explored and discovered pretty much for the first time these high mountain lakes, and they're often really beautiful places to walk to for a picnic or just to spend an afternoon relaxing and enjoying the amazing backdrop. The other thing that we found that was unique to the Alps in this area was the mountain huts, often at a very high level. So that allows you to stay up high overnight, enjoy a communal meal. The food is often absolutely fabulous. This one's called Refuge Plein Sec. And I seem to remember at this one they brought through for the end of the meal, they bought genepi, which is a local spirit made from the mountain flowers. It was a genepi flavored creme brulee. And it was just, really top quality food out in the sticks. And food is a big part of our holiday pleasure. We enjoyed finding loads of places that we put in the book for where to buy, particularly cheese and local producers and what the local specialities are. And we totally enjoyed doing that.
Now, we followed up the Vanoise trip the following year. We'd loved it so much, we did something very similar. Tour de Mont Blanc, which is a real classic circular walk in the Alps. And you can see by now we're adopting the French way. So we set off most days with a baguette sticking out of our rucksack. And the Tour de Mont Blanc actually goes out of France and crosses over. This is on the Italian side. It then goes into Switzerland and crosses back into France at this location, which is the Col de Beaume. Now, a lot of it is above the Chamonix Valley, and Chamonix is certainly not an undiscovered place. I think it's the adventure tourism capital of the world. And the floor of the valley is quite developed and built up. But even there, we were able to discover kind of tucked away corners and out of the way places. And obviously, as you can see, the scenery is absolutely sensational. This is an example of a slightly offbeat experience you could have from Chamonix. Spending the night at a hut called the Refuge Flagère. We were having a beer out on the terrace of the hut. That's the view over the Chamonix Valley with Mont Blanc and the Milky Way behind. And you can see it's just magical. Now, after that trip, we stopped doing the long distance walks because we were lucky enough to get a camper van. Since then, we've spent, when it's bad weather in Scotland in August, we head to the French Alps and we go exploring in the camper van. The result of years of exploration is the book, which is the Wild Guide to the French Alps.
I suppose what we were trying to do, we'd always thought of the Alps as somewhere it was very popular on the Grand Tour in Victorian times. It's been a tourist destination for a very long time. So what we were really looking for to put in this book is all those little hidden places that perhaps gives you a wilder side to it, enables you to find places to stay that are a bit quirky or a little bit off the beaten track, favorite places to go for a picnic, a swim, a cycle ride, beautiful waterfalls. That's what we found. And we really found absolutely loads of places. The book could be twice as big as it is. I think it's got over 850 listings, but there were millions of places that deserve to be highlighted. Going back to our map, we've got, as you said, Geneva at the top and Nice at the bottom. And the first area we're going to talk about is called the Chablais, not to be confused with the Chablis region wine. The Chablais is immediately south of Lac Léman, which Geneva sits on. And it's an area of limestone mountains with deep, verdant green valleys. There are many farms you can visit on the slopes of the mountains. This one's a goat farm, and we were there when she was milking the goats. There's also a small cafe attached, and you can have a meal or a snack there. And I think when we were there, the farmer's husband and son came out and played the accordion to the guests. It was just a magical experience that we weren't expecting. Another one of the cheeses in that area, in the Chablais, is Abondance, a really lovely, nutty, fruity kind of cheese. This is the village that's also called Abondance. We sampled a really lovely dish there where they just bake the cheese with a bit of white wine, the local Savoy wine, and some garlic, and you dip your new potatoes and eat it with your pickles and charcuterie. Really local, beautiful dish to enjoy. Now, this is a mountain pass that we really loved in this area. And what makes this special is during the summer months, millions of migrating birds are funneled through this pass between the high mountains. It's a popular place for bird watchers to see some very rare songbirds and the birds of prey that are attracted by the other small birds. You'll often be able to talk to scientists who are conducting work up at that place.
Okay, moving to the south of the Chablais, we've got the Guifre Valley, which is west of Chamonix and centered on a town called Samoin, famous for its ancient stonemasons. And clustered around Samoin, there's some really beautiful villages. This one's called Vallon. But at the head of the valley is the Cirque de Feu à Cheval, famed for its waterfalls and dramatic gorge. And right at the head of that, the valley is closed off by cliffs, and it's called the Bout de le Monde, the end of the world. There is a path that takes you up through the cliffs, and it can take you to this little cafe, which is the most amazing place to have your tarte aux myrtilles blueberry tart overlooking the valley. Now, we've normally gone to the Alps in August, which is towards the end of the time for the flowers. If you really love flowers, the displays of wildflowers in the Alps
Really good.
absolutely fantastic, but best in June and July, just after the snows have melted. This is one of the waterfalls near Samoin. This is the Cascade de Rouget, which is a particularly huge fall. It's popular, but you can see that people are pretty lost in the scale of the place. In the bottom of the valley, like in many valleys in the French Alps, there's a natural lake that's become a popular place for wild swimming. Now, we do enjoy that, but we prefer to go and swim in the lakes higher up in the mountains where you can get the experience to yourself, and it can be really magical. You might think it'd be cold swimming in the lakes up in the mountains, but...
Oh, that's a picture of me. Since going to the Alps and developing a love of wild swimming there, I've carried that forward. Now I regularly swim in our local river, and there's a bunch of us that quite often break through the ice with hammers and go in the river then, but it doesn't half make the experience of going back to the Alps in the summer and swimming.
Yeah, I've heard there's many health benefits to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Allegedly.
It's one of those that makes you feel better once it stops.
Okay, another place near Samoin that you must visit is the desert, which is a big area of limestone pavement. It looks like a wild place, and it is, and there's wandering ibex and things, but it's really accessible because you can just get a chairlift right up to here. And as you can see, the view to Mont Blanc in the distance is just sensational.
And the next area moving west is Le Bourge. That's also another limestone area. It's really not that well known, not that visited, particularly not visited by Brits or Americans. The mountains are lower here, but as you can see from that picture, that's me on a mountain called Mont Trelord. The views are spectacular, and we really like that area. A lot of the Alps have river systems that are harnessed for hydropower, but in the Bourge, there's this lovely wild river called the Charon, and it's got loads of places for wild swimming, and we found quite a lot of those. The same river, but further downstream, we went over a high bridge above this gorge, and we found a small path that's very steep, but it's only short and quite accessible. It's not a difficult path. It brings you down to the bottom of the river, which is actually called the Chaos de Charan, and another lovely spot for a dip or a picnic. Absolutely lovely. The Alps generally, it's a frontier area, so it's been fought over many times. It's strategic, so there are loads of forts, quite often dating back to Napoleonic times, but they've often been used in both world wars and various times in between. This one is the Fort de Tamis, It's one of about 10 19th century forts in the Bourges area. And as you can see, you can go in and explore. It's not very established as a tourist attraction. You need to take a torch, but it gives you a real sense of how life will be for people stationed there. Now, on the eastern side of the Bourges is Lake Annecy, which you may have heard of. Is a busy tourist destination. But despite that, we really loved it because there's lots of places where you can get slightly away from it all. There's some wildlife reserves on it, and also places where you can take a swim in the beautifully warm waters.
A centre here that we were really keen to go to is this little tiny village called La Barade, which is a really legendary place for mountaineers. It's right at the end of the road so that you can't go beyond here. Yeah. And it's as high as you can get to the big high peaks of the Écrin, which have a lot of glaciers.
There's a service bus that runs from the local town, but you can drive also.
The drive was along a narrow ledge. One of our favourite places was very near La Barade, where we went to have a picnic. This was the first place we really decided to go swimming in the high mountain lakes. There were loads of blue butterflies. Oh. The water was warm. We absolutely loved it. And that became the cover for our book. This gives you an idea of the kind of mountains with the quite big glaciers. This is seen from a ski resort called La Grave, which would be a very different place in the winter. It's renowned for its very extreme skiing. So don't know if that appeals to anybody.
And just south of there is an area surrounding the town or tiny city of Briançon. Briançon is a fortified city, so it has a wall all the way around with gates, medieval gates in it, and it's also surrounded by a ring of forts, most of which you can visit. They're pretty worthwhile. But the area that we really fell in love with is just north of Briançon. It's the Val de la Claret. Really lovely valley, lots of hiking, lots of cycling, lots of places for a picnic. And during the peak summer, the 6 weeks of the peak summer season, they don't allow any vehicular traffic there. So you get a shuttle bus that runs up and down the valley, and that enables you to do these amazing linear walks, visit lakes like that. And we absolutely loved that area. Slightly over a pass from there, you've got a real weird anomaly. It's an area called the Etuat Valley, and it used to be in Italy. Post World War II, the boundaries were changed and it's now part of France, but people still speak Italian. The food is very Italian, so you'll find polenta, gnocchi, pasta, well, that sort of thing. And, it just has a totally different feel. And yet it's only a few miles down the road. That particular spot is the trailhead, the starting point for one of the very few 3,000 meter peaks that you can do without any equipment. You don't need ropes or anything. It's perfectly, for a fit hill walker, you can manage it. But as you'll see from the picture, it's pretty cold at the top and you're going to need every item of clothing. There's a tiny chapel on the top and it's a fairly popular walk for normal hill walkers. And this is descending down the other side from Monthabor. You've got just on the eastern side of the Écrine, really absolutely beautiful, stunning scenery. In this area, you can get very close to the glaciers. This is a mountain hut called the Refuge de Glacier Blanc, and it's quite a nice place to go for a lunch or a coffee and get into the heart of the mountains. But what we've noticed, particularly in the last 10 years, is how far the glaciers are retreating as a result of global warming. They would have been right down where I'm standing in the photo, but not today.
Okay, another lesser known region southeast of Briançon is the Queyras. Now, to get to it, you drive over this road, which is another one of the legendary Tour de France roads, the Col du Izoard. Incredible number of zigzags on that one. But the view from the top into the Queyras certainly tempts you onwards. At the heart of the region is the Chateau Queyras, real fairy tale chateau. Although this is a tourist attraction that you pay to go in, it's really not very developed. It's humbling and there's no restrictions. You can kind of just wander around where you like. If you're from the UK or from America, be similar. You would used to being fenced off and kept safe and things, and it's very different in France. It's quite a different atmosphere. This is a village called Saint-Véran at over 2,000 meters, and it's said to be the highest inhabited place in Europe, permanently inhabited village. It's a really beautiful place to look around. And what's unique about it are these wooden balconies on the upper floors where people used to dry their crops for consuming to get them through the winter. And Saint-Véran's a jumping off point for some really fantastic explorations of lakes, or you can do a route around this peak, which is called the Tête de Toile. You cross into Italy and back within a day. It's a really good walk.
And this is the second to last region that we're going to talk about, and it's the Embrun and the Ubai. And it's really dominated by this massive reservoir, the Lac de Serré-Ponçon. I think people are often really surprised at the color of the water, but it is a natural color. That is basically, there's a lot of glacier runoff that provides quite a lot of natural minerals in the water, which then reflect the sunlight. It does genuinely look as turquoise as that. And there are lots of little wild swimming spots where you can go, and the water's fairly warm. It's a lovely place. Surrounding that, there's these really weird geological structures, basically rocks with big hairstyles, ladies with the, big hair. And they were formed, it's basically a big rock has been left above a lot of softer, shaly, sandy rock that's been eroded. There are quite a few of these strange pinnacly things. And, some of them very close to the road, you can stop and have a look and picnic next to them. And this is right at the head of the Ubai Valley, really quite a dramatic gorge, tiny little bridge over it that leads to a summer village that I think we stayed the night in. That was really atmospheric place. And again, there's a lot of high level forts. This one is near the village of Saint-Ours and on the road to the Col de Madeleine,
which links to Italy. And our final region, the southernmost part of the Alps, is the Mercantour, which has the third national park, but is also really expansive. It's a huge area to explore in its own right. And a lot of it's very rugged. We really enjoyed walking the route that you can see here. It's called Chemin d'Énergie. It was created when they built hydropower in the dams. You can walk through what would otherwise be an incredibly inhospitable landscape on the dead level, which is makes a change. There's a huge number of forts on the borders with Italy here from 19th century that were used right up into Second World War as well. And this one it's on a peak called Mont Athlion, and it saw action very recently because it was one of the very last places where German soldiers held out at the end of World War II. After Germany had surrendered, there were still German soldiers holding out here until it was taken by force. But what you really mustn't miss if you go to the Mercantour is an area called the Valley of Marvels, where there are tens of thousands of Bronze Age carvings on the rocks. The area's got huge areas of smooth rocks that made the perfect faces for carving. It's very remote, but you can either hike up there or you get a jeep tour and take a guided tour to see some of these ancient carvings, and would really recommend that. It's quite moving to see people's artworks from so long ago.
Oh, and there's also an excellent museum in the town of Tende nearby where you can find out more about them and see replicas of some of the carvings. So.
The Mercantour, more than other parts of the French Alps, is exceptional for its perched villages. This one's called Seorges. These are always great places to explore. I love going to these places. This one's called Pionnet, which was actually centered around a whole load of limestone pinnacles, one of which has a path right to the top, which doesn't look likely, but it's okay. It's got steps and things. This was called Rougion. So that ends our whistle-stop tour. Don't do what we've just done and race around trying to get to everywhere, because that's absolutely not the best way to get the best out of any sort of tourism, really. The best tourism, slow tourism. So just pick one or two areas and get to know them more intimately, do a bit of discovering on your own, and make sure you have plenty of time to have a piece of cake and a coffee.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was so interesting. Of course, there's so much to cover. You did such a good job of giving us an overview. Thanks again. And on the screen, everybody can see the website to find out more, not just about the French Alps, but all the other guides that Paul and Helen have written, walkhighlands.co.uk. And we have lots of questions. So let's get straight to the questions. Francis would like to know, do overnights and meals at the Swiss Alp huts need to be reserved in advance?
For an overnight meal, definitely you want to book in advance.
And
Okay.
what really in the last 5 years, most huts are online. So whereas you used to have to phone and speak to the guardian, now you can usually book online. So it's pretty easy to do. And you can do it fairly last minute. It depends on the area. Certainly, if you want a bed and a meal, you need to do it in advance, but you usually pay when you turn up or just before you leave the next morning.
That's a good point. Thank you. Adrienne would like to know, how long do you typically go for a hiking holiday in the Alps? My husband and I have been wanting to do at least a partial hike of the Alps, but we have no idea how long to plan for. It's a great question.
Okay, well, if you were doing a walking holiday, then the one where we first started to fall in love with the Alps, the Vanoise, I think that was fairly short. That was like a 6-day trip.
Ideally, I think if you've got 10 to 14 days, you need to leave a little bit of time to relax. So you're not hiking every day, and maybe a bit of flexibility in case there's some bad weather. But you can do a lot in 2 weeks. Certainly the Tour de Mont Blanc is easily doable in 2 weeks. If I was going back to the Vercors, I'd want to spend at least a week there. And if you've got more time, then weeks and weeks would be amazing.
Paul said before, rather focus on one area than try
Yeah,
to
definitely.
cover too much. And also, do you need to get used to the altitude?
You will feel it if you go really much over 3,000 meters, but you don't need to acclimatize or anything like that.
Okay.
Like in the Himalayas.
Francis would like to know 2 things, which we'll combine into one question. What is the average water temperature in summer in those lakes? Because they sure look cold. And what is the average height that you climbed? So anything too daunting for either or both of you? Francis would like to get an understanding of the level of fitness required.
In terms of the water temperature, it varies massively. Any of the lakes down in the valley bottoms are really warm, up to 24 degrees
I think it was last summer,
so
it's like
really warm by the end of the summer, almost like a hot bath. And then the high mountain lakes, the coldest was probably around 7 degrees, and some of them are hovering around 10, 12, up to 15 degrees when it's hot. But it really depends on how deep they are, how fast the water's flowing into them, and where the water's coming from. If it's coming straight from a glacier, then that's going to be a lot colder. So they really
Right.
vary.
in terms of
And-
fitness, I'd say it doesn't matter. I wouldn't say unless you're doing one of the kind of really got your heart set on one of the set hiking routes or something. There's something for every level. So you can plan something that matches your ability and fitness level. I think we're happy going up to something like 1,400 meters in a day, as much as we would want to do usually.
In terms of height gain.
You don't need to do anything like that if you don't want to.
And there
Right,
is
I liked the one you described, that you get on a bus and then you walk downhill.
Yeah, that was quite a long walk, but all of the pain was taken out of it.
Yeah.
You're just walking gradually downhill all day.
and there's quite a few where you can do something like that.
Yeah, sometimes there might not be a shuttle bus, but there'll be a chairlift from the ski season that still operates in the summer. So you can get the height and do the walks downhill if you prefer.
Francis said, thanks so much for all this terrific information and great presentation. Thank you, Francis. And Pam says, what a gift your talk was. Thank you so very much. My late husband and I went to Chamonix for almost 40 years, and he did the autoroute twice, a sentimental journey for me today.
Nice
Lovely.
to hear.
And Kathy asks, I am not an expert hiker, but I do enjoy a good hike. Which areas might you recommend for an intermediate hiker?
I really like the Beaufortin area because it's not that steep and there's lots of gentle options, and it's really not as busy as some places, and not really known for its walking, but there are lots of good trails. And the trails are really well maintained and well signposted. So the problems you might worry about in navigation or the path quality, I wouldn't really worry about that at all. So I don't know if you have another area.
Yeah, I think that's what sometimes it's not necessarily the areas with the smaller mountains that are always easier, because, for instance, the Chartreuse has what it looks like lower peaks, but we get more scared of the heights rather than the height gain. The kind of vertigo type. So where Helen was saying in the Beaufort is quite good. I don't think there was any walks there where you would get scared of falling off. The Mercantour is a really good area for everything, I think.
Yeah. I was just going to say the weather's Mercantour, I think it's 2 hours from Nice. So it has a really quite good weather. So you can go there for a much longer season. You're not waiting for snow to melt from high passes or anything. You go there in early May and extend into late September, October.
That's a good point. Carol would like to know, you spoke about marmots and all that, but Carol would like to know, did you encounter any adders?
I don't think we have in the Alps. We see them at home in Scotland.
We've seen one that scuttled away really quickly. We've seen something.
No, we did. I think we have seen one adder.
But it's not a common occurrence. They are much more scared of you, and they will hear you coming in terms of vibration. We know a lot of people that walk in the Alps, and we've never heard of anybody having any problems at all.
Adrienne would like to know, what is your favorite area that you've visited?
Oh, there are so many. There's so many memories.
I really liked Vallée Claret, which was absolutely my idea of paradise. With cars being restricted and things, it didn't matter that there was quite a lot of people there because it was totally peaceful. Apart from that, I really enjoyed the Bauge. Before we went there, I had no idea why we would go there apart from writing the book. Nobody sings its praises, and the walks there were fantastic. It's not busy at all. Really beautiful.
Yeah, very friendly, wasn't it? There's lots of markets where you can buy produce. We had some amazing food that we'd never heard of, and some great meals in that area.
That's a great
area I really liked was the Kera.
Yeah,
that's got a lot of very distinctive architecture, very distinctive buildings there, and but every place we went has been, there's always been something that surprised us.
The food looked like you weren't lacking in any of the areas either. My husband's great-grandpa was a French prisoner of war from Annecy. The family business was being sculptures of wood originating from Campertonio in Italy. Several sculptures are in the churches around Annecy. We have never been there, but want to come to hike and visit these churches. Do you know how accessible these churches are in the small villages around Annecy and Chamonix? It's a super interesting story.
That's great. A lot of the churches, it depends really in each area and what's in each church. Quite a few churches are open to the public and you can just wander around. There are other ones where we've been where there have been really amazing sculptures or artworks or stained glass that are set hours and a sign outside. If it's a very small village and the church is locked, go to the local cafe and someone will know. There will be a key holder usually, and someone will tell you about it if you can't find information about the church online. It sounds like an amazing project to go and see there.
Oh yeah, what an interesting trip that would be. And Ryan would like to know, when are you doing the Pyrenees? Great question, Ryan.
We are actually going to the Pyrenees this summer.
Oh,
so
excellent.
We're going to wait and see what we find.
Okay. So we're running out of time. Thank you very much again for all this wonderful information. Of course, there's too much to cover in just a brief presentation. Anybody interested can get the book, and you can watch this video, as I mentioned before, on our video hub at francetoday.com and look up any of the information mentioned. So thanks again, Paul and Helen. Please join us for our next event on Thursday, June 8th for an art walk to discover the the artistic wonders of Le Voyage à Nantes, an extraordinary cultural journey through an art trail that transforms the city into a stunning outdoor gallery. Here to guide us will be Xavier Terret, the head of international promotion and relations for Le Voyage à Nantes. It's amazing what the city is doing with their artwork. Thanks again, Paul and Helen, and to each one of you. Merci, thank you for your participation and your questions. Until then, from all of us at France Today, merci et à bientôt.